Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into Three Men Talking Fantasy Football Week 17 matchups. I am here with Mr. Anthony Perez and Mr. Thomas Lang. You guys ready for championship week, gentlemen?
Yeah.
An exciting week. Christmas and championships.
I can't believe it's week 17 already. It feels like we just started the football season. It's a shame, but you know what? There's always next year.
There's always next year. Well, a very Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to everybody. All right, we're here to help you with your championship week. And, like we were mentioning on the waiver show, even if you're not necessarily in the championships, like a lot of us are, a lot of us got eliminated in semifinals, etc. It's important to pay attention. Maybe you're playing for points. Maybe you're playing for third place or, some iteration of such in your leagues. Pay attention. We'll hook you up as best as we can. So let's jump right into some matchups then. So on this particular week, championship week, we've got a crazy slate of games. We've got 2 games on Christmas on Wednesday, 1 game on Thursday, and we've got 3 games on Saturday before the Sunday slate, and of course 1 game on Monday Night Football. So let's start the week off on Christmas. We've got the Kansas City Chiefs at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Kansas City are road favorites, 2.5 points. That's the FanDuel. That's the FanDuel spread. The over-under there is 44.5 points. Now, we don't know the status on Pickens just yet, but it looks like he's going to play. If Pickens plays, he's in. On the Kansas City side, you're playing Kelsey. Other than that, you have a lot of guys who maybe you're thinking about putting in and not putting in. I know, Anthony, you kind of mentioned the Hollywood Brown situation. You said you're not even thinking about it. You're just putting him right in.
Yeah, I think he's a good flex play this week. It was nice to see him have 8 targets last week, 5 catches for 45 yards. So they're looking to get him the ball. This could be a tough matchup against the Steelers, and they're still trying to play for that number 1 seed. So I think he's a safe flex play along with Xavier Worthy this week.
I think the same thing with Hopkins, and I'd probably feel more comfortable playing Hopkins and Hollywood Brown this week.
I agree with you guys, although I would just caution my own personal opinion is it would be difficult for me to just throw Hollywood Brown in there, but like you
targets,
guys elucidated.
Coming back off that injury, targets are gold. So that's what I think. He's going to get rolled right back into that offense, and he's going to have some play scripted for himself.
Running backs, I would be pretty scared if I'm forced into starting Najee Harris. Yeah. I would really. I mean, you might have to be. He might be one of your best running back options. I'd be trying to avoid it. I know Tommy mentioned that Warren is your go-to flex option for 7 to 10 points. I don't see that game being any different, but again, you might need to be shooting for higher.
I could see Warren scoring a touchdown.
What do you guys think about the Pacheco Hunt situation? You try to sit both of them this week?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it feels like it's just too touchdown dependent to start either one this week. If I have better options, I'm taking the better option. If those are your only options, I mean, I guess you could start either one if you had no choice and just hope that they score. But I don't like the matchup at all.
Yeah. Yep. It's a bad matchup for that defensive front for Pittsburgh. I think they're going to continue to throw the ball when it comes down to the Kansas City Chiefs, and I think that's going to force Pittsburgh to have to throw the ball as well. Now, I'm not saying that the running back situation is not going to have a okay day. I just don't feel like it's somebody that I feel comfortable plugging in as my running back 2 or flex play.
Like we mentioned,
there's more positive script for those receivers.
Like we mentioned, if Pickens is in, you play him. If he's out, I would be terrified of taking some kind of a dart throw on Calvin Austin or Mike Williams.
He did practice in full yesterday, so I think he's trending on playing tomorrow.
Yeah,
I was so disappointed with Freiermuth last week. I mean, he's been doing great, and then we got him into locked and loaded territory. I mean, plus Pickens was out. I mean, it was lined up for him to have such a great game, and he just completely failed. I mean, I guess you could roll him out again.
Well,
take
I
your
mean,
losses as they are. But
I think you still play him. I think he's still a good play. I just think, last week, yeah, we were really high on him last week, but if you look at the receiving core that was over there, he was the primary target. So, you know what happens to the primary target. It doesn't matter how bad the defense is. I mean, they're gonna really put a prime focus on that guy. So I think that, that was just the case.
yep. We could probably just a quick mention of Patrick Mahomes here. So, Patrick Mahomes has not been such a crazy ceiling play as of late. I think he's going to be a decent enough barometer for other start-sit decisions we could probably talk about later on in this conversation. But just to get a lay of the land, you guys are, how do you feel about Mahomes in this situation, or you just don't bother with it?
I think you play him.
Yeah, I mean, if you drafted him, you drafted him to be your starter. You're going to play him.
Yeah, you're going to play him this week. And, for a guy that had a high ankle sprain or low ankle sprain, whatever it was, he had a 20-yard rush for a touchdown.
Yep.
Didn't look like he had any injury there. So you have to play him.
Okay. He'll be a good barometer then. All right, let's move on to the second game on Christmas. We've got the Baltimore Ravens at the Houston Texans. Baltimore -5.5 points. The over under there is 46.5 points. You're playing the running backs. You're playing Derrick Henry, playing Joe Mixon. Despite Joe Mixon's underwhelming performance this past week, you still roll with him. You're playing Nico Collins, and of course, you're playing Lamar Jackson at quarterback. I mean, the wide receiver situation. So I know Flowers is. I don't know what his status is. I think he's going to be suiting up. I think they said that he was in today's walkthrough or yesterday's walkthrough, whichever one it was. Flowers is one of these guys that I guess if he's in, you play him. I know to some degree it's to some level of boom or bust. But other than that, no hesitation on Flowers.
No, I mean, if he's playing, you should play him. I think Mark Andrews is also a good play this week.
Yep.
So, I think I really don't think there's a question with that anymore. Maybe early in the season, but now he's proven to be, what he was, maybe a little bit less of a value, but still a target monster when it comes down to the end zone.
Yep. Yeah. Any of the other options for Houston? I mean, I would be a little bit questionable. I know we mentioned in the waiver show. So Dalton Schultz. So he was definitely a pickup, and I mean, he completely destroyed me personally last week. Considering that Dell is out for the year, Diggs is out, Schultz could be a good plug and play option for you here, considering that Stroud is just running out of options. So
Another interesting option is revenge game for Deontay Johnson? ? He just got picked up by the Texans.
The worst notification ever.
I don't see him having any factor in this game, though. To be honest with you, he hasn't learned that offense yet, so he's probably going to be a non-factor. But I wouldn't be surprised if they get him a ball a couple times against the Ravens, or try to at least.
I wouldn't be surprised if he's claimed off waivers next week.
I don't even know what his problem was in Baltimore, but
I mean, he was on 3 teams this year, or no, 2 teams this year. So it just
3.
was all it was all an attitude problem.
Carolina, then Baltimore, and then
but he was also released from the Steelers
Pittsburgh
last year because of that, same kind of thing. No tolerance policy, and apparently Houston brings intolerance.
So we should quickly point out, so the implied points total here for the Houston Texans is not a lot. It's 20.5 points. So you could go ahead and sit down CJ Stroud, hopefully, as you've been doing. And the Ravens defense is definitely an option. There are some better options this week, which we'll get to, but they're definitely an option.
I don't know.
Really?
I don't know. I think CJ Stroud it could be a pretty decent option against Baltimore's pass defense. I mean, they still have not got it together.
And they're home.
Yeah, I mean, I would see. I can see Stroud going for 250 and 2 touchdowns, which is a pretty decent fantasy relevant day. That is not exactly what you drafted him for, because last year he was going 300 plus, 2 to 3 touchdowns. But he might throw an interception here and there. Who knows? I mean, I think they are also playing for something. They're playing for that division. And I think that they're
Well,
gonna,
the situation with Houston is a little complicated. They've got the division locked up, and there's an outside chance that they actually bump up in seeding, although it's
yeah.
pretty unlikely. I like they're very close to being not motivated. It doesn't mean they're not going to play hard this game.
Well, but if they do bump up, so like they're going against the Baltimore Ravens, so the Pittsburgh Steelers basically are 10-5, the Ravens are 10-5. If the Houston Texans beat the Ravens, then it basically drops them out of contention to win the division most likely or obviously if the Steelers win or Steelers lose, then it keeps them in the same category, which basically brings the Houston Texans with the tiebreaker to bring them up to the 3 seed. So
I mean,
I know
but
I
then
threw a lot out there with numbers, but there is a lot of contention. It just depends on how you want to fall in the playoff seeding.
well, maybe to your point, if they have any hope of doing any of that, they have to beat Baltimore this week. So
I would say this: if I were the Houston Texans, I would not want to have to play the Bills week, the first week of the playoffs. So,
yep,
yeah.
yep. All right, let's move on to the Thursday night game. We've got the Seattle Seahawks at the Chicago Bears. Seattle are road favorites there, 3.5 points. The over-under is 43.5 points. Not a lot of points for Chicago. We got some starts here. You're playing JSN, you're playing DJ Moore, and you're playing Keenan Allen. You're playing both of those Chicago wide receivers until further notice. They've just been too good, too consistent the last couple of games. It's just you rock and roll with them. And the Seattle running back situation. Again, we've talked about this for a couple of weeks. You insert starting running back for the Seahawks here. I know Ken Walker he came back from the injury, whether or not he was fully healthy or not. It's too bad. I know a lot of people would rather him just be out so you could rock and roll with Charbonnet. But if Walker's in, you play him. Pretty simple.
And Charbonnet, you can't even trust him if Walker's in there because last week he had 1 carry for -1 yards, 2 receptions for 14 yards. I mean, you can't do anything with that.
And they named him the captain last week too, didn't they?
Charbonnet?
Yeah.
Yeah. They're like, here, you're going to be captain this week and you're going to sit the bench the entire game.
Yeah, he's the captain now.
Well, it threw a lot of people off because it gave a lot of people an indication that it seemed like he'd be the main guy that week and the starting running back, but I guess that wasn't the case.
No, I mean, and also Kenneth Walker only had eight carries for 31 yards, but he had 8 receptions for 28 yards. I don't get it. I mean, obviously the script was bad over there. But I don't know. I don't even know if you could play any of those guys right now.
Going against Chicago's run defense, I mean, if Walker's
Chicago's run defense is good.
No.
Well, what we're saying is like the amount of work that he gets, like if whoever it is, if Walker's in, you play him. It is what it is. I mean, you take your lumps. I mean, you play your studs. So it's not much of an argument. If you want to lower your expectation, that's fine. But the guys who get the work, the guys who are your studs, you play them.
Yeah.
On the Chicago side, I see that as a bit harder to sift. I mean, Swift has been it's been such a roller coaster this year. This is another one where I'd be trying hard not to play the Chicago backfield here. I mean, their implied points total is 20 points. Caleb is throwing the ball a lot. And they're not that effective on the ground. Although I can't deny Swift looks good when he's in open space, but that's about it. I mean, we'll compare him against some other. I mean, would you rather start Swift or Harris? Like,
probably Harris.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's. I had such high expectations for
neither
here too. I thought he was going to do so well on the Bears, and given that opportunity to take over that lead role and run with it, and it just really hasn't been the case. And that could be because of the fact of Caleb Williams being a rookie quarterback too. Defenses are now honing in on the running game against the Bears and forcing Caleb Williams to throw the ball more.
I mean, and I will say Swift does look halfway decent when he gets in space, but he's not getting in space a lot.
No.
Oh, you're right. The tight end options, they're both definitely in the category of, take a shot and hold your breath if you really need it. I know Tommy is much more of a fan of Santa Claus, but it is what it is. You take your shot and really hope for it. Both quarterbacks, though, they're definitely in the streaming category. I mean, Caleb has been, I think it was this past game or the game beforehand. Like he's definitely he has a ceiling. He definitely has a ceiling. He can do the 3 touchdowns or run one in or whatever. Gino's a bit more consistent. In a game in which the over-under is only 43.5 points, though, I don't know if I'm that crazy about either of them. I'd be much more inclined to Caleb. But depending on what your options are, I mean, you could take your shot either way. Take of that what you will. Also point out, so the implied points total for the Bears is 20 points. So the Seahawks defense is not awful, but like we said, like
awful.
I'd be petrified. Yeah, I mean, the Seahawks sometimes they just completely let you down. So let's move on to the Saturday slate. We've got first game. We've got the LA Chargers at the New England Patriots. The LA Chargers minus 4.5 points. The over under there is 43.5 points. So we've got 2 starts. We've got 2 must starts on the Chargers side. If you've got Ladidi McConkey, you're playing him. And the Chargers defense, you're playing him. The New England implied points total there is 19.5 points. On the New England side, I can't think of a single guy that I would be okay starting in this. We talked about it on the waiver show, Anthony, about the Henry situation, about if you're scared to start him, if you have to start him. I mean, I can't think of a single guy I'd be willing to start here. What do you think?
No, I'm passing on everything I possibly can in this situation if I have to. I don't feel comfortable with anyone on the Patriots offense going against this Chargers defense, except for Hunter Henry. If you have to start him, you start him. That's the only one, though.
Yeah. I mean, and I would say, again, just to piggyback off the waiver show, as we were discussing, if J.K. Dobbins is in, I'm starting him. I think he has a lot of incentive to make some bank the next 2 weeks. So I know, I understand the concept of, yes, are they going to the playoffs? More than likely, yes. But players when players see cash and they leave cash on the table, sometimes they don't want to do that. So I could see him coming back, being in a limited role, but being in a limited role against New England is still fantasy relevant. So I would start, Dobbins, and if he doesn't play, and he's saved for week 18 for kind of just a run for the playoffs, just to get his legs going again. I probably would start Edwards based off of last week's production, but I would not anticipate last week's production.
Well, we kind of talked about it on the waiver show, and people we kind of have a difference of opinion here. If Dobbins plays, I would be scared of both Dobbins and Edwards because of the vulturing situation. I don't think he's going to play. Therefore, Edwards is probably a really good start. Like we said, the New England defense was completely eviscerated by Cook, and Anthony brought up a nice stat there. Number 4 on the year in terms of rush yards allowed. So, I mean, you could rock and roll with Edwards if he's out.
Yeah. I honestly think that this is a great start for Herbert too. I honestly think that they're going to put up a 30 burger. Start. I think they're going to put up a 30 burger on the New England Patriots. So, that means that there could be a defensive touchdown, but there's obviously anywhere from 4 at minimum, I think 3 to 4 touchdowns from the offense of the Chargers.
Yep. And like we mentioned, nobody else on New England. I mean, and therefore just a quick mention. So Ramondre Stevenson, I mean, I'd rather play Najee Harris. I'd rather play DeAndre Swift, who we just mentioned, over him.
Yep.
I'd be everybody on New England. I don't feel good about. Let's move on. We've got the Denver Broncos at the Cincinnati Bengals. Cincinnati are home. This is going to be a good game.
This is a great game. This should be a great game.
And big playoff implications here. Cincinnati are home favorites, 3 points. The over-under there is a nice 49.5 points. So real quick, just to mention to people, so Denver right now has not locked in, but they're currently in the 7 slot. Cincinnati, if they win, they have to win this game. But if they win this game, if Denver loses the final week against Kansas City, Cincinnati gets the playoff spot.
Yeah.
And judging by the fact that KC is the number 1 seed, it's going to end up in KC versus Cincinnati for first divisional round of the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, number 6 and 7 is the Chargers and also the Broncos. So those two teams need to win this week to lock in that position.
If the Chargers win this week, they're locked into the 6. They can't drop lower.
And then that takes off the Colts, the Dolphins, and the Bengals if both those teams win.
So we're basically looking at the last AFC team here, and this is the most important game to decide that.
Yep.
All right, so we got a lot of stars here. Let's start Cincinnati. You're playing Chase Brown, you're playing Jamar Chase, you're playing T. Higgins, and you are of course playing Joe Burrow. On the Denver side, you've only got Cortland Sutton. I mean, Cortland Sutton didn't have the best game last week, but you roll with him every week. Targets are king, and Bo Nix. I mean, he has been unbelievable since Bo Nix started.
And the Cincinnati defense is not a championship defense like they were when they played the Rams in the Super Bowl. Not. So they're gonna let up some points, and Nix has been playing very good to let Sutton get open.
Yeah, so some of the question, I mean, what's with it, the game with such a large over under, you want to try to get pieces, but beyond the names that we mentioned, I'm very, 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 very standoffish. I mean, we talked about the Broncos running back situation over the waivers. I don't want to play either of these guys. This is Williams and Estime.
No, I think this is a passing game, and I think that this easily hits the over the 49.5. I think, the both implied should be, they're going to be in the 30s.
What about some of the tertiary options here, Anthony? So Vele, Mims, may throw in Rich Franklin. I mean, nobody else for Denver. You're even remotely taking a shot on here?
No. I probably Sutton's probably the safest bet. Maybe Vele as a flex play if I have to. But that's about it. I was going to with you on the running backs. I'm staying away from them. I'd start Najee Harris over either one of those running backs.
I was going to say Vele is definitely somebody I'd probably flex this week. If you have 2 flexes, then it's a no-brainer. You're probably going to play him.
Tight ends, Gesicki, we talk about it all the time. He's a complete shoot for the stars guy, but maybe it's a level of inconsistency you can't have. I mean, you judge it as your team. And then, Bo Nix. Bo Nix, if he's going to have a good game, this is definitely one for it. Cincinnati does not have a good defense here, like we mentioned.
This is the game. This is the game you play Bo Nix.
This is a game you could play Bo Nix. Like I said, you judge your options as you have them, but in terms of quote unquote streaming, Bo Nix is probably better than some of the guys you would have.
It's funny because I had someone ask me this past week about a quarterback situation on who they should play. And it was Bo Nix. It was one of them. And so I literally told her, they're both even, but Bo Nix has been the most consistent. And I think since he turned things around, he's been great. He really has. You can count on him, I feel like, every week now.
He did have a bad game. I forget if it was last week or the week before.
No, he had a 21-point game last week.
Yeah,
it must have been the week before. But the thing is, it's. I agree with Anthony. It's just he's been too consistent to be ignored against a bad defense now.
His bad week was his bad week was 16 and a half points and then 14.2 points. Against Cleveland. Indianapolis and Cleveland, which they have decent secondaries. Outside of that, same thing with the Chargers. Though. Chargers has a decent secondary.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
So he's I feel like he's somebody that you can just sit and ride for the rest of the season. Obviously you got one more week, but he also could be a nice DFS play moving forward for week 18 too.
Yep.
And he's a guy if you're playing in a dynasty league and you have him, you got to be feeling great about that.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Especially going into next year.
Yeah, because Peyton rides on that quarterback. Once he locks in that quarterback, he's not great with the running back situation, but he's great with the quarterback situation.
Yep. Let's move it on. We've got the Arizona Cardinals at the Los Angeles Rams. The Rams are home favorites there, 5.5 points. The over-under is 48.5 points. I was so disappointed with the Cardinals last week.
Yep. They have nothing to play for anymore.
Yeah, they have nothing to play for. So we got some.
Spoiler, but
right, which is not going to happen. But we do have a few important names to talk about. Kyren, you're playing him. Puka, you're playing him. Cooper Kupp, despite how bad it's been, Tommy, you are playing him, right?
Yeah, I guess you have to. It's terrible.
You're playing.
You know, this should have been the bounce back week this past week, but you know, it wasn't.
It wasn't. But you are playing Cooper Kupp. Don't just take your lumps as they are. You're playing Cooper Kupp.
Well, let's just say, would you play Cooper Kupp or Debo this week?
Cooper Kupp. Debo had one good game.
I like Cooper Kupp's potential a lot more than I do Debo's. I mean, Debo had a decent game this week, but he's been way too inconsistent.
This is a game in which they're favored. The over-under is 48.5. The implied points total for the Rams is 27. So, I mean, I'm playing Cooper Kupp here.
I will ask this real quick, though. Once Stafford leaves, do you think Nacua is still top dog once they get a new quarterback?
It depends what kind of quarterback they get. I mean, if they end up drafting a guy first round, probably not. But if they end up trading for some, I mean, I know they were talking about the Darnold business earlier in the year. If they were to get Darnold, I'd say yes.
Yeah. I gotta be honest. I really see the Rams just going away for the next couple of years. I mean, coaching, and also, I mean, when Aaron Darnold was contemplating retirement and he did retire, the rest of that team was almost like, we're done too. Even the coaching. There could be a possibility of just completely switch and they just are the bottom barrel. They could be the New York Giants for the next couple years.
I mean, but this year they could end up in the NFC Championship. I mean, we'll see how they.
I mean, you know, the Giants were in the NFC, almost in the NFC Championship, and then they just done.
This is a commiseration on the Giants. That's what this podcast is.
Yes, commiseration on the Giants and the Jets. That's what we talk about.
Right. So on the Arizona side, you're playing Trey McBride. Even though, you know, didn't have the best game, but again, you roll with Trey McBride. And then let's just talk. We have to talk about the Connor situation. So I don't know if he plays this week. I
don't think so.
I don't know. And I know that it's going to be difficult. So this is a Saturday game, so you'll get the information sooner. But if Connor plays, you play him because he's been the best back in football the last 3 or 4 weeks. If he's out, then who's even the backup now? Is it Benson? Is it DeMarcado?
I think he's Benson. Hurt. Benson's hurt, though, isn't he?
No, Benson right now, he wasn't. I don't believe he was on the injury report.
Because he was out last week. He was out this past week with his ankle.
He was. But I don't believe he's on the injury report right now. If you want to continue, I'll check it out.
Yeah, check out the injury report because I know that there's other names there too. Now we've got.
Well, if Benson's healthy and Connor's out, you play Benson because they're probably going to ride him. And like you said, they're really playing for nothing at this point.
So I'm just looking at their injury report.
Yeah, DJ Dallas and
Michael Carter.
All right, DJ Dallas found end zone. He found the end zone last week.
The long story short is if Connor's out, I'd be petrified of playing any other back. Basically. Yeah, I mean that's my point.
If Benson's in there, you might have to roll with Benson.
Yeah.
So, wide receivers, man, Marvin Harrison. Oh my God. I don't want to play him, but I guess you have to because you drafted him in the first or second round.
Same thing with Cooper Kupp.
I mean, it depends on who your options are, and it's going to championship week. You know, I think that philosophy of why I drafted him 1 overall, I have to play him is out the window.
Yep.
I think fair. You just have to, you know, if you have the options, you have to play your best options or what you see is or what you think is your best option. He's been such a disappointment this year, though, and I do feel bad for anyone that drafted him high.
I don't know how you're in the championship if you have Marvin Harrison.
I mean, you know, pays off obviously in dynasty leagues, maybe keeper leagues, but if you're, you know, in a redraft league, this has been an utter disappointment from him, and there was just so much hype going into the season with him.
Well, it's kind of like we were talking about on the waiver show. I mean, yes, is he a great talent, but did the name fall in line with some of these
right,
you know, draft capital elements? Yes. I mean, I just feel moving forward next year, we got to be a little bit more smarter with drafting a rookie that has not produced on the NFL scale in the first and second round.
Sure.
Obviously, a different, Neighbors is a different element himself. I mean,
Ryan Thomas is different. I mean,
Yeah.
but none of those guys were drafted. Like if I had drafted
well,
Neighbors,
Neighbors was a second, third round.
he ended up being third round. But like for example, like if I had drafted Neighbors where I drafted Harrison, I would probably be slightly disappointed in Neighbors because it's all draft capital. But again, like I'd be happier than what I am now.
But Neighbors had a wonderful year.
I think I agree with Tommy. I think Neighbors for the most part had a really good year. Like versus him and Marvin Harrison, I'd be happy that I took Neighbors in that situation.
But caution to rookie wide receivers. That's well noted, and we'll get into that. And Anthony, to your point, I just read you the last 3 games for Harrison: 4 for 49, 2 for 32, and 4 for 39. There you go. That's your what was the ADP? It was like first round, pick 12
round, end of first round.
Yeah, Some people took him in the first, early second.
So I mean, roll with Harrison if you want to. I'd be trying hard to bench him. So
I mean, I feel like you're going to have to.
Yep. None of the other options are that appealing. Not the tight ends you can stay away from. The Rams tight ends, they kind of roll with both of them. Parkinson and Higbee, basically vulturing the both of their value. And then of course, so basically like the Harrison situation, I think it's a function of just Kyler being awful. I don't know if it's
It's not that Kyler is awful. He's just not consistent. That's the problem.
That's the problem.
When you're not consistent as a quarterback, then you're just going to bring down the value of the rest of your guys outside of Trey McBride.
Basically.
And that's the problem. So I really think that, if Arizona wants to be relevant next year, they might have to look a different way in quarterback because Kyler is too consistent being inconsistent.
Maybe it's a different kind of a coaching thing they need to do with him. Maybe they need a more Greg Roman style run and shoot kind of offense. But
you know what it is too? I think on his part, I think it's a bit of immaturity. I don't think he's fully matured, Kyler. And you look at the Call of Duty, for instance, the guy that wants to play Call of Duty Overwatch film. I mean, that just goes to show the level of maturity that he's at and how he feels about the game. I mean, I think he's got a lot of growing up to do. If he wants to reach his full potential, he's got to grow up, plain and simple. And I think a lot of it falls on him and not even the coaching staff.
Well, I mean, that also falls on the coaching staff to keep him in line too. But I mean, again, that's a different story for itself. I mean, you can't take a player when he's off and tell him, this is what you have to do. They have to take that incentive. It's like with anything. I mean, us with work and what we do on a daily basis, we have to take an initiative to go out there and overperform to make sure that we're going to excel faster than anybody else. So like that's the same thing with that perspective with quarterback situation, any type of that you're the leader. Like doesn't matter what team you're on, you are the leader. You're the top dog. You're pretty much the highest paid player on that team. You need to take initiative.
And I hope teams start, and as much as I hate to sing their praises, like what Kansas City did with Patrick Mahomes, they waited till you knew he was going to be a good quarterback, right? But they waited till him to win some championships before they actually paid the guy. Yeah. And then they gave him a contract, and he's still not even the highest paid quarterback, which is kind of insane to me considering his accolades at this point versus everybody else. I
think he's the 10th highest paid quarterback now.
What's that?
I think he's the 10th highest paid or something like that.
But
he broke the market. He broke the market, and then the market was broke.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. All these guys are like Deshaun Watson, for example. Even Kyler Murray got a really good contract for doing what? Nothing.
Right.
I hope teams start to smarten up because this is the stuff that happens because Kyler's already paid, so he's like, well, why do I got to work hard for? You go back to look at Jamarcus Russell for an example when he got that huge contract, right. And just like I don't feel like playing football anymore.
Yep.
It's not to derail this conversation with the fantasy thing, but I couldn't agree with you more, Anthony. Although I will say that it's amazing how those kinds of things get brought up right when the conversation is going to be about paying Brock Purdy, who is somebody who absolutely deserves a serious contract, especially what they've been paying him up until now. But all of a sudden now we're talking about we need to watch about playing Brock Purdy, but that conversation never happened with Daniel Jones.
What's crazy about Brock Purdy is you see what he did for Christmas. He invested $750,000 on presence for his offensive line, and he makes $900,000 a year.
Right. I mean, he'll be fine, but
Yeah, he'll be
it's just-
fine. He's probably, he has endorsements and all that stuff too. But
right.
Listen, if I'm the Jets, pay the man. Bring him on over. Pay the man. I'll take it.
We'll have more conversations about that kind of thing in the off season. About we could have nice little arguments about why you pay players or not pay players. We'll get into that. For the sake of fantasy, though, Kyler, for all of the reasons that we just said, let him take a seat. Matt Stafford, though, he has had a bad 2 weeks. Not because of him. I mean, they just didn't need him the last 2 weeks. I mean, it's been basically lots of Kyren, lots of running the ball. This is a week. I would say it's probably more of the same. Arizona has no motivation here. Their best player, Connor, is probably going to be out. It's probably going to be a lot of Kyren. You probably get a lot of targets to Puka and Cooper Kupp. I'd be scared to start Stafford here too, though. I mean,
you watch your mouth with Cooper Kupp. Puka's getting all the targets.
All right. Let's move it on. So now we start the Sunday slate. If my calculations are correct, we've got the Dallas Cowboys at the Philadelphia Eagles. Philadelphia minus 9.5 points. The over under there is a small 43.5. That does not leave a lot of points to the Dallas Cowboys. Suffices to say that the Eagles are on our must start defensive category here. Play them.
I think this hits the over.
I think it hits the under. I think the Eagles defense is too good for this. And but maybe I'm wrong, but we'll see. On the Eagles side, you're starting
the Eagles defense. If the Eagles defense was that good, they wouldn't have let up almost 35 points last week.
I mean, that was Washington.
Still.
Okay.
Still.
Okay.
Washington with a broken down, second wide receiver. I mean, people are finding their way open. So
I think this is a completely different animal. And by the way, Vegas would agree with what we're saying. I mean, their implied points total Dallas is 17 points. So judge it as you will. You're playing Saquon Barkley, you're playing AJ Brown, and you're playing the Eagles defense. Jalen Hurts. If Jalen Hurts plays, you're playing him, obviously, but it's trending towards he's not going to play. I read this morning. I don't think that affects the Eagles winning the game that much. I mean, Kenny Pickett's decent enough as a backup.
He got hurt too.
Did he really?
He got hurt in the middle of the game. I think he came back though. But I mean, Pickett looked good. I mean, when you have that much star power, I could go out there and look good.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah,
but
maybe not.
And maybe not. But
if Hurts plays, then I feel like Devontae Smith, you could roll him right in there with confidence. If Hurts does not play, you sit Devontae Smith. Like we said, you're playing AJ Brown. Otherwise, I don't know necessarily if that's affecting the line or Vegas is being conservative here. Maybe the line would be bigger.
I think if Pickett plays, then Barkley breaks the record this week.
Maybe. On the Dallas side, you're playing CeeDee Lamb, and then every other option here is take your shot. I mean, I'm sad to say that, Rico Suave, this is not going to be the game for him, although you probably look to try to play him maybe, but
he's an RB2, but he's a low end RB2 this week.
Yep. And any other shots on any tertiary options on your backup wide receivers? Cooks, Tolbert for Dallas.
I'm keeping them on the bench.
I probably going to tight end. I'd probably start Ferguson, flex Ferguson in there if I could.
We talked about this on the waivers. I mean, he just gets a lot of targets. There's no way around it. But at some point, you got to turn these targets into production. The Cooper Rush situation, we talked about that as well. He's been a fairly safe option, low ceiling. This is probably another one of those games. Let's take Tommy's point from earlier. Let's say Dallas hits more than their implied points total. Let's say they get to 20 points. 20 points, let's say maybe he gets a touchdown, maybe two, 230 yards or something. It's decent enough for your team that it won't sink you. I think you could do way better than Cooper Rush this week.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of garbage time, to be honest. I think the Eagles do get ahead by double digits, but I think that there's going to be a lot of garbage time through this game. So that's why I think the line at 43.5, it's going to hit the over.
Yep. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And obviously, like we said, if it ends up hitting the over, how much value is going to go to how many of the players? I mean, it remains to be seen. Yeah. So, any other players there? Ready to move on?
No, not for me.
All right, let's move it on to a more disgusting game. You've got the Indianapolis Colts at the New York Giants. It just feels like the Giants are always home and they're always getting slaughtered at home.
Yeah. Yep.
Indianapolis minus 7.5 points. The over-under there is 40.5 points. That does not leave a lot of points for the New York Giants. Implied points total for the Giants there, 16.5 points. Play your Colts defense.
Yeah, Colts defense you have to lock in. And honestly, like I said on the waiver show, I really think that Tommy Cutlets does make an appearance and he plays. He usually plays at home, and I feel like Dabo is he's playing him because because Tommy Cutlets' parents are feeding him chicken cutlets. It's a sideshow, guys. Like the Giants are a complete sideshow right now. The only player that's relevant right now is Neighbors.
Malik Neighbors.
Unfortunately, it's destroying Tyrone Tracy's value. If they were playing for something, or if they were just playing just to try to win the game, Tyrone Tracy you could see he's out there, he's trying. And he looks good, but unfortunately, I can't play him this week. The only player I could play is Neighbors, no matter what.
Well, I agree to that sentiment, but I do think the Giants are actually playing for something. They're playing for the number 1 pick this year.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Because the Raiders essentially screwed themselves out of it by winning last week, so they took themselves out of that number 1 spot.
And that's usually the Giants.
Anthony said it so casually.
That's usually the Giants that do that by screw themselves into a win.
Yeah, no, the Raiders did that last week, and they're all upset now because they don't think they're going to land Shedeur Sanders.
Well, they will, because if the Giants take Sanders, that's a problem.
Well, that's the thing too, and I don't think Sanders would approve, because Sanders has a list of approved teams he'd play for. I don't think the Giants are one of them, which is insane to me. If you're getting drafted to the NFL, you should be happy wherever you go, but I mean, times have obviously changed.
Yeah, I think honestly, I mean, if we're talking about NFL draft, I think that the Giants don't take a quarterback. I think they take somebody else. With Schmavish Munter, and they take a.
But that would be a wait. That would be complete.
No, because I think there's a quarterback market for free agency. So I think if they land a free agent,
I don't think they need to take a quarterback, but I don't think that Hunter should be their first overall pick. I think you got to
imagine Hunter. Imagine Hunter and Neighbors. Whew. That is fire.
It's fire.
And Tyrone Tracy coming out of the backfield.
There's a lot of fire there.
That's a 5-win. That's a 5-win season right there.
Yeah. I think the fan base. I don't know about you personally, but I think the fan base, if they don't draft a quarterback this particular this draft, especially if they have the number 1 overall pick, it would be like it would be riot.
I get it, but if free agency, if they sign somebody in free agency, which I feel like they're forcing themselves to do.
You keep saying that. Give me the name that's on your mind. Say it.
Shmaron Rogers.
Yeah, I don't think he goes to the Giants. I think
he wants to stay in New York.
Well, the thing is, unfortunately, I think the Jets are going to keep him. I think he will stay with the Jets next year. But I do think the Darnold situation is an interesting one to monitor because he's only on a 1-year deal. And, do they trust J.J. McCarthy? And say if they make a deep run in the playoffs, do they just get rid of Darnold, or do they re-sign him and let him be the starter next year and J.J. sits the bench?
Well, I mean, I think they keep Darnold. I think that would be a huge mistake, and I think Justin Jefferson has a say in this as well too.
Can I wrangle this conversation just for the sake of fantasy? Because
yes.
We'll have a lot of speculation going on in the off season. But it's a good parlay. We should talk about motivation. So while we said the Giants' motivation is to lose every game possible, believe it or not, the Colts still have an outside chance to make the playoffs. It's not going to happen, but they have an outside chance to make it. So they're going to be
this week.
They're going to be trying very, very hard to win this game. So you could fire up a couple of these guys. So Taylor, you're playing him, and like we said, you're playing the Colts defense. Oh, but and just to double that, you're playing Malik Neighbors on the New York Giants.
Yeah.
Sit everybody else. But you could definitely take a shot on Downs for like we kind of talked about on the waiver show. He may have had a bounce back game, and Richardson is getting better. I feel like Downs is a decent enough option in this game. You agree, Anthony?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Well, the last time that
good flex play.
The last time that Richardson played in New York or New Jersey, he ran in for 2 touchdowns, right, against the Jets.
He did. He's an option too.
Yeah, yep. So he's familiar with that field. He feels the field over there, and he doesn't do bad things by getting injured on that field. Knock on wood. I think Taylor is just a massive start this week.
Hard hitting fantasy analysis for Richardson by Mr. Thomas Lang.
Yep.
All right, let's move on to I don't know how, an even more disgusting game. So we've got the Las Vegas Raiders at the New Orleans Saints. I don't know how this is possible, but the New Orleans Saints are home favorites by 1.5 points.
I don't know either.
I have no idea. The over-under there is 30. It's just because they're home. The over-under there is 39.5 points. That leaves the implied points total. Let me just read this: 19 for the Raiders and 20.5 for the Saints. I would have thought it would have been the other way around, but it's not. I guess both defenses are therefore an option. I'd be more inclined to start the Raiders defense, considering the Aiden O'Connell is better than whatever nonsense the Saints are throwing out there.
I would stay completely away from this game,
maybe just
except for Bowers.
Bowers, you're playing them. There's no question about it. Okay, Saints, let's just quickly mention. So Kamara's probably not going to play. However, if Kamara does play, obviously you play Kamara. Let's just assume for the sake of argument he doesn't play, because I have a feeling he's not going to play. If he's out, you could probably roll with Kendre Miller. He did not have a good game.
Don't do it.
Don't do it? Not
Don't
even
do it.
a remote emergency.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
Okay, fine. You heard it. You heard it there first. But I think we were singing, Abdullah's praises on the waiver show. That's a decent enough. I'd play Abdullah over some other guys.
Like I said in PPR, the waiver show, if it's full point PPR, you play him. If it's any other format, I don't see how you can play him. I think his value only comes in PPR leagues. That's just my opinion.
It's Bowers and it's over.
Jacoby Myers, I think I'd be petrified, to Tommy's point, of playing that too. Although we love the target.
He gets targets, but honestly, it's Bowers and it's over.
Right. Yeah, we have to apply the same logic. If I'm getting annoyed at Ferguson for having lots of targets and not doing anything with it, I have to be annoyed at Myers for like getting a lot of targets and really not doing much with it at the moment. But again, it's the Raiders, it's Aiden O'Connell and stuff. It's only as good as much.
It's Bowers and it's over.
All right. Yeah. And then again, I would maybe take a shot on the Raiders defense. I think that's a decent enough option. So
I'd probably take, honestly, if we're talking betting right here, I'd probably take Las Vegas money line.
Well, if they're not favored, let's get some good odds.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about the next game. We've got the New York Jets at the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo minus 9.5 points. The over-under there is 46.5 points. Not a lot of points for the Jets. So again, just like last week, fire up your Bills defense. Although the Bills defense basically disappointed last
in
week
the first
a little
half.
bit in the first half. But they'll be coming back with a vengeance. They should be ready to go. And the Jets are basically just playing for pride, which doesn't mean that much for our team, the New York Jets. Anthony, on the Jets side, if Brees is playing, which he should be, you're playing Brees Hall, especially because Allen got injured, I believe. So you're playing Brees Hall. You're playing both of these wide receivers, Devontae and Garrett Wilson, and this is another week that we consider Aaron Rodgers a decent enough streaming option. The over-under is high enough. Their implied points total isn't that low, but again, Aaron Rodgers has been great as of late. On the Buffalo side, you're playing James Cook. Apparently, James Cook is the greatest running back whoever lived. Because I played him in 3 different fantasy leagues last week. You can imagine how happy I am about that. And then the Josh Allen situation here. So Josh Allen's going to play. I can't imagine him sitting down. If by some miracle he doesn't manage to play in this game, then completely just shove every Bills talking point that you can just right out the window. I mean, but he's going to play, obviously, and then you play Josh Allen. All right, Tommy. Shakir did not have a good game last week. Okay?
Still play him.
You still play him. No questions asked.
Yep.
Okay. I'd be worried.
I wouldn't. It's one game.
One game. Okay. I mean, we'll
this
wait
game,
and see.
this game is going to really grind my gears because this is the game that I just know that the Jets are going to win. They have no business winning this game, but I know they're going to win. And we're going to look back to when they play them in October, the Bills, and say, well, where was this? And why couldn't we do this then? You know, this is going to be one of those vintage Jets moments where it's unnecessary, but they'll pull it off and they'll win somehow.
That'd be unbelievable. Can I just tell you something? Just to if the Jets pull this off and they actually win this game, which they might not, but let's say they did, then that means that Kansas City doesn't need to play, like they're done. Like they've locked up the number one seed, which means that after Cincinnati wins, it's going to be Kansas City's backups purposely losing to the Denver Broncos in Week 18, kicking out the Cincinnati Bengals. And all you're going to hear online is that, yeah, they were scared of us. They purposely let it happen. They thought that they were going to win. They thought. Now, I got it. There's members of people in this fantasy football podcast here who don't like the Chiefs. But that is all you're going to hear. So we'll see how soon it is that the Bills lose, or if they when it is that they lose or not. But if it's here, that's all you're going to hear. It might not happen, but we'll wait and see. In terms of other tertiary options, I don't think I would start anybody else in this game. I mean, you stay. I guess you could stay away from. You could take a shot on Conklin if you need it. I know Tommy's higher on Kincaid. Is this a game for Kincaid then for you?
No.
I think he's a starting option. I think.
Okay, I would try to stay away. Too many mouths to feed, but either way. All right, let's move it on. We've got the Tennessee Titans at the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jacksonville are favorites here, minus 1.5 points. The over/under there is 40.5 points. This is so similar to the Raiders Saints game. Implied points total for both teams is 20 or 21 points. We've got one player for you to play in this entire game. You play Brian Thomas, and you happily play him. I can't see myself playing anybody else in this game unless if I needed a tight end, like we talked about in the waiver show, you could roll with Chigakonkwo. Other than that, I sit everybody in this game. Do you disagree? Tommy, I know you've got the Spears and Pollard thing going on. Like, what do you think?
I probably would lean Spears this week. Again, Pollard looked good, but Spears looked a lot better, and they lean to Spears in the red zone. He's, it's crazy with that Guardian cap. It makes him look like his head is just like a bobblehead. But he's a short guy. He's small. He hides behind the offensive lineman, and I think he's a good plug-in this week. I think he's a good flex.
Okay.
I agree with Tommy there. Especially off his last 2 weeks and his performances, he's definitely a figure in the passing game for them as well. I consider him a strong flex play this week.
I think the only thing is the reason why they grabbed Pollard in the offseason was because they were looking for like that primary back, that's somebody that's going to hit the hole and be able to be stable for the entire season. Pollard is not that guy, but he was the most available guy for them to pay. That being said, they didn't have 100% faith in Spears being the primary back. So I think his role of what he does is a nice flex play.
Running backs for Jacksonville. This is another week. It's probably a full sit. I know Bigsby had a decent enough game last week. I'd be petrified of both of these guys. I mean, Etienne was it Bigsby or Etienne who had that awful fumble last week? I can't remember.
It was Bigsby.
It was bad. Yeah, I wouldn't want to play either of these guys. The wide receivers for Tennessee, Ridley is always an option. I know we were talking about NWI on the waiver show. I would want to not play either of them personally. Rudolph has been better, but it's just not going to be pretty.
Like you said. I mean, we were discussing this on the waiver show. You're going to be playing your guys that got you to where you are. But based on who you're going against, if you're going against a juggernaut and you're the underdog and you need to flex somebody that's in there that's going to have a boom play, you might have to make a decision and start one of these lower end options that could have a super high ceiling. So.
Yep. And like we said, Chigakonkwo, he's a good option at tight end if you need it. You don't have any of the superstar guys. Let's move it on to finally a really good game here. We've got the Carolina Panthers at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tampa Bay minus 7.5 points. The over-under there is the second highest of the week, 49.5 points. This is going to be a great game. You're starting basically almost the entire Tampa Bay side. Bucky Irving, you're playing him. Mike Evans, you're playing him. Jalen McMillions, you are playing him. Let's go, Jalen McMillions. And obviously, you're playing Baker Mayfield. On the Carolina side, definitely a lot of options, but chief among which you're playing Chuba Hubbard. Wide receivers, I know we're big on the Adam Thielen situation. Any reason not to play him here?
You're playing Thielen. Legacy.
Legacy Thielen. I wouldn't play any other options in Carolina. No other pass catching options.
Coker looked good. I mean, I'd probably still play Coker as a flex potentially. But I mean,
would you play Coker or Ridley?
Do you want me to say it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Coker.
Okay. Well, that's fine.
I feel like Coker has been more consistent when he plays than Ridley has been more boom or bust.
Yeah, that's true. Tight ends, you're not playing either of the tight ends. We've been talked about Cade Otton as a drop candidate. And quarterback, though, situation, okay, like we said, you're playing Baker. We have identified Bryce Young as a good streaming option this week. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen this week. They're playing Tampa Bay. That was his best game of the season, however many weeks ago, right? Against Tampa Bay. Like this is the week for that. And like we said,
which holds that point of Coker being a good start.
So then the only real question here to me is like Rachaad White. So do you just not question it and play Rachaad White, or do you sit him? Obviously, we already said you're playing Bucky Irving. So I know Tommy thinks that Rachaad White is scared of Bucky Irving.
Scared of him. I think you still have to play both. If you drafted both, you're playing both. They're still kind of like the Sonic and Knuckles kind of situation over there to an extent. But I think you still have to play White, even though Irving. I mean, it's a good matchup for for both sides. So.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't necessarily disagree.
Let's just put it this way: you're not playing any defenses from this game right here.
No, I don't. I think this is gonna. I think they're both gonna hit their implied points total, especially Carolina here. Yeah. All right, let's move on. We've got the Miami Dolphins at the Cleveland Browns. Miami minus 6.5 points. The over-under there is 40.5 points. That leaves the implied points total for the Cleveland Browns at 17 points. So the Dolphins are in our must-start defense category here. We do have some players that you're going to be playing. So on the Miami side, Devon Achane, you're playing him. Tyreek, you're playing him. Jonnu Smith, you're playing him. On the Cleveland side, we have one player who you're playing, and that's Jerome Ford. Pretty simple. Tertiary options, though, I mean, I'd be terrified of playing Jerry Jeudy, Anthony. I mean, like we said, we're lamenting the Jameis Winston.
I'm not playing any receiver on the Browns.
Yeah, I agree with you.
The only option that I may look to lean to play if I needed a tight end was Njoku.
Yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, but he might not play, right? He's injured, isn't he?
No, he played last week.
He's injured now. All right, maybe he's just taking a veteran day. But okay, yeah, I don't disagree with that. In Miami, though, so Waddle's probably not going to play. I don't think that means automatically you go ahead and roll with Washington. No, the targets basically just got funneled into Tyreek and Jonnu. It's pretty simple. Yeah. I mean,
and Achane.
And Achane. I mean, for this reason, Tua did not have a good game last week. So does that mean you try to roll out Tua again this week, or you just try to avoid him? Like, Their implied points total is 23.5 points. It's not a lot.
I think you play him. I think they destroy Cleveland this week.
Well, I think they will, but
I think they might. I mean, they could potentially hit the line themselves.
I wish they would, but they've not. They have not been hitting that many.
No, they haven't. They
good,
haven't. But I think just Cleveland is just so bad right now.
Yeah. All right. Well, take of that what you will. We named the guys. You could do better if you need to, but there are better options than him. Let's move it on. We've got the Green Bay Packers at the Minnesota Vikings. This is going to be a great game. Minnesota are the favorites, minus 1.5 points. The over-under there is 48.5 points. You're playing a lot of players in this game. Josh Jacobs, you're playing him. Aaron Jones, you're playing him. Justin Jefferson, you're playing him. Jordan Addison, you're playing him. The quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings, Sam Darnold, you are playing him. Jordan Love, I don't see how you could possibly sit him in this game, right, Anthony? I mean, we've been talking about this. He's been very, very safe, and in a game in which they're going to have to throw the ball, this is the game for him.
Yeah.
So you roll with Jordan Love. I feel like
how isn't this Sunday Night Football? This is a 4:25 game.
Well, because of how
it's Atlanta and Washington.
Yeah, those are playoff implications. Yeah, and that was already slated. So the real question becomes in this game if you have the brass to play any Green Bay wide receiver, and I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to do a touchdown guarantee on Jaden Reed this week. Watson might not play, and in a game where Green Bay is finally not the favorite, they're going to have to throw the ball. They're going to need him. Not everything's going to go to Josh Jacobs in this game. So I'll do it.
My pick is Romeo Doubs this week for a touchdown.
Romeo Doubs, huh?
I was going there. I was going to say 2.
Yeah, I could see him having 2. I think this is a good week for Doubs.
Yeah, I think honestly they shut down not shut down completely, but they lower his volume with Jacobs this week because Minnesota is just, they're playing great run defense and really good secondary. But I think Doubs scores twice.
This is also just goes to show how bad the wide receiver group is. Not bad overall, just so inconsistent the wide receiver group and the Packers are. We're just throwing darts on who's going to score a touchdown.
Well, the thing I will say this: the thing about that is, yes, it's not great for fantasy, but it's great for the NFL for their team because they have so many options out there. If somebody gets hurt, somebody's going to pop up.
Yeah,
like you're not talking about players that who like it's like when you talk about Dontavian Wicks, like he's still a relevant player, right? Like when those two players go down, and that's happened before. Watson and Dobbs are both down. Jaden Reed and Dontavian Wicks is a potential viable start. So you have players that people know about, but you just can't play those guys. You have too many options. So they did well for, let's say, Jordan Love when Rodgers was there. They were trying to
both of the tight ends are good, not great options. That's Tucker Kraft and TJ Hawkinson. Although in a game with a pretty high over under, I'd feel good about kind of throwing them both in there. Hawkinson has been underwhelming the last couple of weeks, but he's such a major part of the offense. And Sam Darnold's slinging it.
Yep.
So
it's going to be a great game.
It's going to be a great game. Let's move it on. So we've got the aforementioned Sunday Night Football game. We've got the Atlanta Falcons at the Washington Commanders. Washington minus 4.5 points. The over-under there is 47.5 points. This has got the interesting factor of this will be Penix's second start. And, there might be a little bit of curtain calling on this, a little bit of pumpkining happening here. I think Washington runs away with this one, which basically puts Atlanta out of the playoffs. But we'll get to the playoff implications.
Well, no, that's not true. That's only if Tampa Bay wins this week.
If they win, and then it actually depends on what happens next week because Atlanta has the tiebreaker over Tampa Bay. Mm-hmm. On the Atlanta side, obviously you're starting Bijan Robinson. I would be scared to be starting Mooney or London in this game.
Mooney looked good with Penix, and like we were talking about on the waiver show, Penix looked good football wise. fantasy wise, it didn't correlate to numbers and those points that you needed. But I still liked how that offense rolled on his first game outside of Kyle Pitts, just being disgusting as always. But yeah, I mean, I'd probably roll with Mooney as a flex play.
And London, you're okay with him? No issues.
Yeah,
putting him in there?
I think he's a wide receiver too.
Okay. Pitts, as we mentioned, would rather drink poison, so just let him go.
Well, I wouldn't go that far, but yeah, it's pretty bad.
I would. So Michael Penix.
Oh, Merry Christmas, Billy.
Merry Christmas. Yeah. So Michael Penix, you are not rolling with Penix. I mean, bad calls from Mr. Lang from last week. Although
I agree, and I said it.
But what we were going to say was
for the 1 or 3 people that have followed me on the Michael Penix play, I apologize. But again,
but what we wanted to say was just as kind of like a halfway mark of that, I thought Penix looked good and efficient, kind of like we thought he would look. Minus that Pitts play, I mean, he was going to probably have a real good rookie debut. Really, to be honest, I mean, I think
he didn't score a touchdown, but it was a Bijan.
This will be his true test going against Washington this week, and it's a battle of the rookie quarterbacks, Penix and Daniels. I mean, it's going to be
right. It's going to be a nice little commentary for this game too. Leading up to it.
So on the Commander side, you're playing Jaden Daniels, obviously, and you're playing McLaurin. So with the wide receiver situation, we brought it up on the waiver show. We think Zacchaeus could be a pretty good
revenge.
And he's got the revenge narrative. He could be a pretty good shot to take if you need it. Zach Ertz, you could roll with him back again. He should have a bounce back week. I think Ertz is definitely a great option here. I guess my only question is, I mean, after that horrific performance by Brian Robinson, I mean, do you have any issues just sucking it up and putting him back in there at running back? Or
I say suck it up and roll with him again.
Yeah, I almost feel like you have to. Yeah, especially if you drafted him. Most people drafted him in second, third round.
No, he's always been a 5
later, but he's been crushing it though.
Yeah, he's always, for some reason, he's always 5 to 8, so he's always a keeper.
I don't think that was an awful game. That was such a bad game. I mean, I hope he does, but it made it so bad that normally he would be in a must-start category. But
I think you play him.
Okay. All right. Let's move it on to Monday Night Football. This is going to be a good game too. We've got the Detroit Lions at the San Francisco 49ers. Detroit minus 3.5 points. So San Francisco doesn't have anything to play for here. By the way, the over-under is 50.5 points. Should point that out. The highest over-under of the week. I almost kind of let that by the way. So San Francisco doesn't have anything to play for here, but you know how Kyle Shanahan rolls. They always have their team motivated. They always have their team ready to go. This is going to be a good game, and lots of points are going to be scored. Detroit, you're playing Jahmyr Gibbs, you're playing St. Brown, and you are playing Jameson Williams, especially in a game like this.
Yeah.
You're playing Sam Laporta. On the San Francisco side, you're playing George Kittle, but in terms of every guy after that, there's some question marks. So Isaac Guerrero, if he's in, you play him because every other guy after him it's just a bridge too far. They were just bad.
Yeah. You're not starting 4, 5, or 6 running back for them.
Well, what's crazy is that Patrick Taylor last week was in on 81% of the snaps, so he got majority of the snap share. He
looked
nothing.
bad.
Yeah, he did nothing.
That's what I was saying. Stay away.
They needed Guerrero, and Guerrero looks like he's going to play this week from the last reports I saw. So then, I mean, the real question becomes: let's get to the wide receivers in just a moment. Let's touch on quarterbacks. So Jared Goff, who probably got you into the championship if you played him, but his consistency is just horrendous. I mean, you got 50 points, 4 points, 50 points. You know what I mean? Like that's how he rolls. In this game in which Detroit is favored by 27, I was thinking about this, Tommy. I think the Montgomery situation, the fact that he went down, probably helped Goff. I'm willing to roll with Goff, take my chances, and an over-under this big, I think Goff is going to crush it and win you your fantasy league this week.
I agree.
Yeah. The question is Purdy. I think Purdy's a pretty good start this week. He's been good. And a lot of games he's been in the top 6, top 5-ish. This is another game, 50 point over under. You could roll with Purdy. I think the question at this point just becomes, what do you do with the San Francisco wide receivers? Go ahead, Tommy, take this one.
I mean, you're just playing Jennings and
I was gonna say Jennings.
Jennings, even after that awful game.
Yeah.
I mean, but the reason why it was an awful game is because he was the wide receiver 1. They're flexing Debo in the backfield. They're putting him in the slot. Whereas last week he was against what's his name over there in Miami, Ramsey. So yeah, I think Jennings has a better week, weaker secondary against Detroit. Yeah, I mean, I think this is going to hit the over. This is a big game. There's a lot of points, I think. And let's just put it this way. Championship football for fantasy football there's a lot of players waiting on this game here.
That's right. It's going to end on Monday Night Football, right?
Yep. And I think this is going to be a huge game. Like if you're going against your whole slated roster has gone, and you're down by a little bit, let's just say by 20 points, and you got a Garindo, and you're riding on him to bring you to victory. It's going to be tough. It's going to be nerve-wracking if he's not declared active. But I think it's about a 95% chance that he plays, and if he plays, he's going to put up some points. So I think this is a really good game this week, and I think also Debo could be a nice little play as well.
I think I was thinking about this. I think a lot of Debo's scoring came because Patrick Taylor was just so bad last week.
That's what I'm saying. But
if Garendo is in, I think Debo's a sit.
I think they still roll with Debo and they flex him around. They work with what was working. I mean, they lost the game last week, but they don't have much to play for anymore.
No, but that's what I was saying. Their motivation, this is the 49ers. This is Kyle Shanahan. They're going to be motivated here.
Yeah.
So I agree with your Jennings take. I think you take your lumps and you roll with him again in a high over-under. Debo, I'd be petrified of. But yeah.
Said it last week. I'll say it again this week. Another guy I like is Laporta. I said he'd get in the end zone last week, and he did. I think he has a pretty decent game again this week as well.
Yep. So there we go. That is the slate of the Week 17 Fantasy Football Championship here. And we wish you guys nothing but good luck. And any closing remarks, gentlemen?
Once again, I just want to say thank you for everything and watching these videos. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe. This is something that we enjoy doing and we're very passionate about, and love to share our knowledge with you guys to try to help you win these leagues and have a better understanding of going about these leagues, especially if you're new to fantasy football and the whole scene. But we really appreciate your support.
Yeah, like Anthony said, if everybody could like, subscribe, share, it'd be great. Obviously this is week 17, championship week. We are going into the off season pretty much after this week, and we'll, review playoffs and pretty much some daily, fantasy here and there, opportunities and things like that. But yeah, we appreciate your support, and we're looking forward to growing our community through the off season and getting you guys ready for the next year.
There it is. Thank you very much, everybody.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Happy holidays.